Hey, everybody. Let's take a look at the 2026 Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballot and predict who's going to get a plaque in Cooperstown. And actually, we're going to make a prediction on the final voting percentage for every player on the ballot. And this is not just a stab in the dark. It's based in part on publicly available completed ballots as of the time of recording. So in other words, writers who have made their voting known. And it's also based on historical patterns and some other inside information, stuff like that. So this is actually a real attempt on my part to be as accurate as possible in predicting how each player is going to do. The ballot features 27 players. Guys whose names are italicized are first-time inclusions, while underlined players, and actually there's only one, Manny Ramirez, those guys are on the ballot for the final time. They've reached their 10th year of eligibility, which is now the last year. Just a few quick reminders before we get into it. The Hall of Fame class of 2026 will be announced on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Candidates need to receive 75% of the vote to be elected to the Hall of Fame. Candidates need to receive 5% of the vote to stay on the ballot for the following year. And as is the case with Manny, candidates can stay on the ballot for up to 10 years. That's provided they continue to get that 5% threshold of the vote. All right, let's dig into the 2026 ballot. We're going to go through it alphabetically, starting with Bobby Abreu. I think we all agree that Abreu was a great player. He was a great hitter. He had a great batting eye, and he had a lot of speed. Early in his career, he was also a great defender in right field. Unfortunately for him, he left the Phillies right before they got really good, and he joined the Yankees after the peak of their run. And as a result, he didn't play too much in the playoffs. It's weird because he was with some really successful franchises. I've got him at 35% in this coming ballot, and how much he grows from there, we'll have to wait and see. Carlos Beltran. After topping 70% in just his third year of eligibility last year, Beltrán is pretty much a lock to get voted in this year. He had a 12-year run as a great player. He played in 2 World Series, losing it with the 2013 Cardinals before finally winning it with the 2017 Astros. And of course, let's not forget his incredible tenure as manager of the Mets, all 77 days of it. I've got him at 80% this year, getting in pretty easily. Ryan Braun had a very strong first half to his career, including winning AL Rookie of the Year in 2007, AL MVP in 2011, and MVP runner-up the following year. But his performance fell off after that, and of course he had that positive PED test that was overturned on a chain of custody technicality. And also as part of arguing that case, he threw other people under the bus. I think he fails the character test for most voters, and for most fans for that matter. I see him getting 12% this year in his first year of eligibility. I have no idea where it's going to go after that. Mark Buehrle, he's quite underrated in my opinion. His career value is identical to Andy Pettitte's, slightly ahead of Cole Hamels, who's also on this ballot. The big thing separating Buehrle from those two guys is postseason experience, which isn't really Buehrle's fault. His teams just made it to the postseason, much less. But when he did get there, his team did win it in 2005. Buehrle deserves more votes, but it's not looking good for him. I see him getting to 24% in his 6th year of eligibility. Time's starting to get short for him. Shin-Soo Choo had a fantastic first half of his career. Unfortunately, his performance fell way off right after he signed a huge free agent contract with the Rangers. Interestingly, most fans feel that Choo didn't dog it after getting paid, but rather put too much pressure on himself, leading to terrible performance. Either way, after age 30, he was never the same guy. Edwin Encarnacion has virtually the same career value as Shin-Soo Choo, but did it in the opposite way, coming alive as a player at age 29. Had Encarnacion found his offensive groove sooner, the conversation would be different. As it is, he ran out of time to amass a good enough resume to make the Hall of Fame. Gio Gonzalez peaked in 2011, leading the majors in wins and finishing 3rd in the NL Cy Young Award. By 2020, he had lost most of his effectiveness and he retired in the spring of 2021. Alex Gordon had a huge peak from 2011 to 2014 where he was the best left fielder in the game, at least defensively. The advanced fielding metrics agree with the voters who awarded him a Gold Glove in each of those 4 years. He was also a big part of the Royals' back-to-back World Series teams in 2014 and 2015. Sadly, I don't think that's enough for him to even get the 5% needed to stay on the ballot another year. Cole Hamels is an interesting case. He was a good to great pitcher for many years, and he amassed a lot of career value. He was a 4-time All-Star and got Cy Young votes in 4 seasons, although he never finished higher than 5th in the voting. But one thing that sets him apart from other players with similar credentials is his postseason experience, and in particular his winning of both the NLCS and the World Series MVP awards when the Phillies won the 2008 championship. That year, Hamels pitched 35 innings over 5 postseason starts, putting up a 1.80 ERA as the Phillies won all 5 of his starts. I'm guessing this earns him some extra credit with the voters, and he's going to start off in his first year of eligibility around 28% of the vote. That's a good place for the first year and gives him a real shot to make it one day. Felix Hernandez, meanwhile, is basically 1 year ahead of Hamels. Hernandez got 20.6% of the vote in his first year, which was last year. He looks to be taking a big jump to about 48% this year, giving him an excellent chance of making it to the Hall of Fame within 3 to 4 years. Very well deserved, in my opinion. Torii Hunter has had surprisingly soft support and has barely stayed on the ballot through his first 5 years. Although his overall career value is quite high, as high as some Hall of Famers, a good amount of that value comes from his defense. Offensively, he was well above average, but thanks mainly due to a late career surge with the bat. I think voters think of him as an average hitter and good defender. There's also the issue of his comments against gay people, which may turn some voters away from him. And flipping over the outfield wall in the playoffs certainly can't help. Overall, I think this is the year Hunter finally falls off the ballot with just 4%. Andruw Jones is coming down to the wire, with this his 9th year of eligibility. Last year, he needed only 35 more votes to hit 75%, so he's likely to get in this year. If not, it'll probably be the next year, which will be his last year of eligibility. His career is another tale of 2 halves with a very disappointing second act, but his first act was so unbelievably good, I don't think he can be kept out of the Hall of Fame. My prediction is that this year he gets exactly the 75% needed for election. Matt Kemp had one outstanding season, 2011, when he led the NL in homers, RBI, and runs scored, and finished just behind Ryan Braun for the MVP award. He had more than a third of his total career value that season, and eventually played in 1 World Series in 2018 during his return to the Dodgers in their loss to the Red Sox. Kemp might get a few votes for his peak year, but that's about it. Howie Kendrick was a solid player on both offense and defense and had a nice showing in the 2019 playoffs. He won the NLCS MVP that year, and his team, the Nationals, won the World Series. Beyond that, he has only an All-Star selection in 2011 and is unlikely to get more than a few votes for the Hall of Fame. Nick Markakis had his best season in just his 3rd year way back in 2008, which probably means he felt like a disappointment for the rest of his career. That's unfair. He was a solid player, but he had only 1 All-Star selection, batted .198 in the playoffs, and didn't play in any World Series. His profile is pretty similar to longtime teammate Brian Roberts, and like Roberts, Markakis will probably not get a single vote for the Hall of Fame. Daniel Murphy is also not going to make the Hall of Fame, but he has an interesting case. At the end of a solid Mets career in 2015, he obliterated the Dodgers and the Cubs in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Do you remember this? In 9 games across those 2 rounds, he had 7 homers, 11 RBI, and 16 total hits with a slugging percentage over 1,000. Yes, a slugging percentage over 1,000. But then against the Royals in the World Series, he had 3 singles and 20 at-bats as the Mets lost. He followed this up with a great 2016, his first season with the Nationals, and a solid 2017, and then tailed off pretty quickly. He might get a few votes for his short-term heroics, but that's about it. Dustin Pedroia got almost 12% of the vote in his first season. It looks like his support is going to increase significantly this year, which makes sense for a guy who won the Rookie of the Year award, an MVP, 2 World Series, and 4 Gold Gloves. I think it's obvious to the voters that if injuries hadn't ruined his career by age 34, he'd be an easy yes. It's just going to take a little bit longer, but he'll get there eventually. I predict 24% this year and up from there. Hunter Pence was a very good player, very well liked, and a big contributor on 2 Giants championship teams. But he never had a top 10 MVP finish in any season and didn't really have a career peak, just a long, solid run. He'll grab a few votes at the most. Andy Pettitte is a fascinating case. His numbers alone are clearly Hall-worthy, but his use of HGH has dissuaded voters. However, because he openly admitted use of HGH, issued apologies that were perceived as sincere, and answered all questions posed to him by the media, voters seem to be thawing the freeze on him. I expect him to take a big jump this year, over 50%, leaving him with 2 years of eligibility and at least a chance of making it. We'll see what happens. Rick Porcello won a Cy Young, played in 2 World Series and won 1, but that won't be enough to get him more than a vote or 2. In 9 years on the ballot, Manny Ramirez's voting results have barely changed, always being between 22% and 34%. In this, his final year of eligibility, very little is likely to change, meaning he'll fall off the ballot because it is his 10th and final year of eligibility.
Ramirez.
So far, Alex Rodriguez's voting results have been very similar to Manny's. A-Rod has received between 34 and 37% of the vote in each of his first 4 seasons on the ballot. I predict he'll tally a few more votes this year, up to 40%. He's done more to rehabilitate his image, but it doesn't feel like that's going to be enough to ever get him elected. Francisco Rodriguez still holds the single-season record for saves with 62, but his status as an elite closer was over by age 30. He's been at 8 to 10% in each of his first 3 years and might get a small bump this year to 12%. Jimmy Rollins is a borderline case, and he's seen his support grow to 18% in his first 4 years of eligibility. He was the NL MVP in 2007, but most folks understand that that year was an aberration for Rollins with the bat. The rest of his career, he actually had pretty poor offensive value. But he was a truly outstanding base runner, one of the very best of his era, and a very good defender, and there's no doubt he was a major contributor to the Phillies' success. I see him inching up to 20% this year. And how about his double play partner? Compared to Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley was almost as good a base runner, an even better defender, and a way better offensive player. Given that he's at second base, Utley is a no-brainer to be elected to the Hall. I see him going over 50% this year and getting in 3 to 4 years down the line.
Chase Utley, you are the man!
Omar Vizquel is probably the clearest example of a player's off-field behavior costing him the Hall of Fame. Vizquel got 52% of the vote back in 2020, but legal problems, including allegations of domestic abuse and separate allegations of sexual harassment, have driven away the voters. He received only 17.8% of the vote last year, and will probably get a little more this year, but my guess is he never makes it to the Hall of Fame. David Wright is remarkably similar to Don Mattingly in terms of his career, except Wright was even more productive than Mattingly despite injuries limiting him to even fewer games than Mattingly. Wright has started slowly in the balloting process, just 8.1% last year, but I expect him to make a meaningful jump this year to 14%, and with 7 more years to go after this one, he might just climb higher. All right, let's summarize our predictions. Among the first-timers on the 2026 ballot, I think most will drop off. And here's that list. I think just 2 guys, Ryan Braun and Cole Hamels, will continue on to a second ballot. And nobody from this ballot's rookie class is going to get elected this year. Now, among guys returning to the ballot this year, I see 2 being eliminated. Torii Hunter due to dropping below the 5% threshold, and Manny Ramirez because this is his final year of eligibility. I expect 10 guys to continue on to next year. Here's that list. And I expect 2 guys to get elected in January. Congrats to Carlos Beltran and Andruw Jones, assuming I'm right. Speaking of which, I'll plan to do a follow-up video after the results are announced, seeing how well I did with my predictions. Until then, let me know in the comments how you think I did. Where am I too high, too low? What would you like to see that's different? Just let me know. Let's figure it out before the votes actually get announced. Make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see the follow-up video on how my predictions turned out. Have a great rest of your day, and see you soon.